This is my virtual presentation for TLAB 2014 at Berkhamsted School. My name's Sarah Findlater. I'm an assistant principal in London. My presentation is on engaging English lessons and digital tools, and this section is on the class novel. It just covers some creative approaches that I use in my classroom for the class novel. I hope that you find them useful and that some of them you will be able to use in your own classroom. So just to begin with, I like to use drama to engage with texts, especially if they're difficult texts or if they are unfamiliar situations, characters, experiences that perhaps the students that I'm teaching aren't familiar with. So I like to use role play. I sometimes give my classes different sections of the novel that we've read so far for them to role play that and have a look at how they interpret those sections. We discuss it as a class. I might give them a scenario that we haven't read yet in the novel and get them to play that out. I also could give them the same extract and see how the different groups interpret that through their role playing. I also like to hot seat during the lessons, so myself or another student I've prepped in advance will take the role of one of the key characters and the class will quiz that character while the person remains in role. It just helps them to bring the character to life if they're struggling with a particular situation or person within the novel. And finally, the drama activity I'll share with you that I use fairly frequently is Conscience Alley. So the students stand in two rows, raise their arms and touch their arms in the middle, so it kind of forms an archway all the way along. And they'll be given a scenario and a character to think about. And a few students at a time will walk through that tunnel while the students who are forming the tunnel or the alley or the archway will whisper or shout or say emotions, words, feelings, things other characters might be feeling about them. Anything that comes into their mind about that scenario I've given them or that character. And the students, while they're walking down there, it's quite a powerful experience if it's done well. They will be immersed in that kind of an audio experience of the kind of emotions and feelings that character might be going through. It's great to do a bit of reflective writing after the drama activities to get down any kind of new understanding that's gained through those activities. So they're just a few of the drama activities that work well with class novels. Creating a family tree is a really practical, actually, activity from Key Stage 2 all the way up to Key Stage 5. If there's perhaps a complicated family or friends, we can include within that a family or friendship situation, lots of characters begin to come into the story. It's a good idea to form some sort of family or family and friends tree to show the kind of links between the different characters. You can just have genetic links. You could build up that tree and have emotional and relationship links between the different characters as well. That's always quite interesting. And again, reflective writing after creating something visual such as that really helps to compound the understanding or the new knowledge that they've gained through that. Form switch is another great activity to use with your class novels. So switch a section of the novel, or perhaps when you finish the whole novel, switch the form of writing. So instead of the characters in the storyline being within a novel, perhaps form a poem or form a monologue or a script, which kind of summarises the entire section either that you've chosen or the entire novel. It just makes them kind of think about process the storyline and the things that they've come across within their reading. Quote quest is always a really good one. Obviously, selecting relevant quotes is an essential skill for all age and ability levels. So having a quest and making it into some sort of competition, this works. I can think of a time when I've used it with my A-level class when we've been studying a Shakespeare text and giving them different characters in groups or very small groups, such as maybe 3 students, giving them a different character each within the Shakespeare play and asking them to find the quotes just for that character and form a revision handout, I suppose, then photocopying that and giving it to the whole class. So at the end of the lesson, you have quotes collected for all of the characters. You can also do it for different sections of the novel or the play that you've been doing. That just makes sure that they're selecting. You can then obviously discuss whether they're relevant quotes. You could then go deeper and start to analyse the quotes as a group or individually. You could use that as a basis to begin your essays. So there's lots that you could do with that. Visual notes. I've used this more, although I don't think it is not relevant for higher abilities. I've used this more with lower ability classes. If we're reading quite a dense text, which sometimes we do, I will occasionally we will go into making visual notes. So while I'm reading, or while we're listening to an audio, or while one student is reading, the rest of the class will be taking visual notes. So we have large kind of A3 paper, so it's kind of freer than the A4 paper. Lots of colour pencils or felt tips, whatever's appropriate, or just pencil and pen if that's too distracting. And they're not allowed to use any words to make their notes. So they have to just put images down. And I will begin by obviously modelling it and doing it alongside them on the board to give them an idea. And what I find useful in this is to encourage them to think outside the box and to have a think about ideas that aren't, and visual kind of things that come to them visually that aren't on the surface, the kind of associations or connotations. And the drawings that they come out with are usually of a really, really interesting and very high level. And they pull out things they really don't expect. And I will take a few risks and draw some quite random things and then explain why I've drawn that and the associations that I've pulled from particular words or quotes. And that will encourage them to then take risks and think about the associations. You can then use the visual notes and show them how much they've pulled out of the text. Use those visual notes to form the basis for a quite high level in-depth essay where you're analysing the quotes that have made them think of those images. It's a really good way to get into deep analysis without the fear factor of, I don't know, it's too difficult for me, I don't understand what the connotations are. So a nice way to get into that. Microanalysis is great as well. It's a tool that we all use all of the time, but giving them small sections or quotes and asking them to really in-depthly analyse the language within it. So pick out individual words and pull them apart, go into minute detail and obscure associations as much as they possibly can, even if they're not sure why they think that. And then we will have a look at what they've come out with. You could even do that as they have perhaps 10 different quotes or 15 different quotes. They work in pairs and they just put a few ideas down on the one quote, then they pass it on, somebody else adds their ideas, pass it on, adds their ideas, and then it's not just one quote they're looking at a number of quotes. So microanalysis on the individual words on those. Text crunching is a really great way for analysing language of a whole text or a whole section of text. I'll show you an example. This is an example of Great Expectations crunched and a word cloud, if you like, or a Wordle. This particular tool is a Wordle, is created. So what's happened here is the whole text, and again, with our more traditional texts, they're obviously free and available online, as the copyright is no longer applicable if the author is no longer with us. So with the text where we have the full text online, this is a great tool that you can use. Poetry it works well for as well. So this is the whole text of Great Expectations, just copied and pasted into this tool called Wordle. There are a few out there. And it crunches that, and the words that appear the most are the largest within this word cloud. So for instance, Joe, Mr, Miss, no, little, looked. Those words are popping out. So we've got key characters that are coming out, but we've also got key words. So it helps to see patterns in language. So you can use that for many different activities. Another activity I like to use is character bodies. So drawing a large outline just of a generic body and doing that for every single character. You can do it in their exercise books, just use one full page and draw a body for each character at the beginning of your reading of the novel, and then just build your ideas. What I do is use words on the character body. So there's one outline of a body, and inside are all the emotions, the feelings and the thoughts. Whereas outside are the events that happen, the relationships, the links with other characters, that sort of thing. There's many ways you can do it, that's just the way I do it. So you could use a full page in a book for every character and just build that slowly, have a small reflection time in every lesson. Or you could have a larger character body for each one, so perhaps have it stuck up on the wall, real human height, and get them to fill it in groups at different points during the reading, so get them up and working on the walls. It's better not to do it on the whiteboard because obviously you want to save it and add to it, so either in their books or on larger paper or on full life size, kept on the wall for reference. Visual organisers such as storyboards or any kind of charts that you want to do to collate information is always a really good point of reference for them to refer back to discuss, and to break down the information that they're taking in. Creating comprehension questions is a really fun activity to do while reading a lengthy bit of text. So if I'm reading text for some time, I will get the class to jot down some comprehension questions that they've created as we're reading with the answers, and I'll pause the text every now and then, and we'll have kind of a class quiz, make it into a competition, and they will ask their questions, select the person to answer them, you could put them in teams, and then allocate points towards it. It keeps them all on track and keeps them engaged in what's going on. You could have some sort of merit or points at the end for motivation or just the joy of learning. Alternative ending or chapters is always a good activity, so thinking about creating their own bit of creative writing, which is a different ending or a new chapter or a rewriting of a chapter from a different perspective, and that just gets them to think about the structure that the writer's using, to think about the intentions of the writer, and to think about the reasons behind the choices that they've made. Chapter titles or tension or ripple charts is really good activities to get them on board with. So giving the chapter titles is a great way of quickly summarising the whole of the text, and it keeps them focused on what's going on in each chapter, so makes them summarise it. Tension and ripple charts, so tension is charts charting the tension and suspense through the novel. You could have them do it as a large chart on the wall or individually in their books and compare the differences. And a ripple chart could be to do with a theme, how important it is in different sections, so the ripple outwards. And finally, the virtual trip. So if you're thinking about context, social and historical context, there's two great tools that you can use rather than just getting them to do some reading and discussing and perhaps a web quest, which are all great things, but something to mix up would be Google Lit Trips. So I'll just show you briefly a Frankenstein one. So Google Lit Trips, you can just Google it and that will come up. There's lots of different texts that they focus on. There's ones that have been created already, but you can create your own as well. And this is somebody's made a video of their lit trip for their class. So this is what it would look like in the end if you created it. They use Google Earth as their basis, and they take you on a trip around the parts of the country that are relevant for your novel. So you'll see in a second that it'll pop up the journey that the characters go on. So you can see the different locations there and the journey on which the characters take. As they zoom in, each red or bright orange dot there will have a different website or different information that the students are to engage in, and they can also go in, because it's Google Earth, and have a look around the area. So not only have they got the information, they can go and have a look. It makes it more realistic. Ignore the voice, but I will let it just zoom in so you can see.
In this Google Lit Trip for Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
So you can see there, they've hovered over one of the orange dots, and that has come up to the front cover. As you go through each location, it goes to Wikipedia or a particular website on that country, whatever they've linked it to, or if you were creating it, whatever you've linked it to. It's a really nice way of them taking a virtual trip, and as it zooms in, you'll see.
By Gregory Greenleaf and the students of this 2012-2013.
So it's going into Mary Shelley's home town here. So you can see it's an aerial shot there, satellite shot. You can go in and do street view as well, so it makes it really adaptable and very realistic for the students. Okay, and finally, we have our 360-degree tours. So taking a tour of the area in which the novel is set. So I've got an example here that we can have a look at. And this is a tour. We won't do the introduction. The introduction is just a kind of build up to it. But there are lots of 360 tours out there. This one's on the Shard. So if you were your novel was based in London, this would be a good one to use. You can change the view to dusk or to daylight on this particular one. They're all very different. And each little dot there, the coloured dots, you can click on it and the information will pop up as to what that particular location is. And you can navigate around, so you can have a look at different areas within the city. And there are also audio and video clips.